streaming.
HOD sir is, like director sir is checking with the principal and secretary. So once they join, we'll just start the program. So
Sure.
yeah, we'll just have a basic welcome speech, just very brief, and then address from secretary sir, principal sir, and then I'll just have your introduction, and then we can start your presentation.
Sure.
Good evening, sir.
Ramesh ji, good evening. How are you?
Fine, sir. How are you, sir?
All well, all well. I'm sorry I could not make it to so many invites that you gave me. It was very hectic schedule in Bangalore as well, and otherwise also. So I just couldn't make it.
No issue, sir. When you come next time, probably.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe that's what 2022 will be looking forward to meet you, sir.
Yeah, let's hope.
Be like, if not combining with something else, maybe we can dedicatedly plan your visit only for our college, and then other
Yeah, we
colleges
work that.
also can do things.
Yes.
Please.
And who are the
I will-
audience? Basically students.
Yeah, majorly it is all students, sir.
Okay.
Our colleges and other students from other colleges. We have shared this with other colleges as well.
अच्छा. Okay. ठीक है.
Amit, sir?
I'm just calling secretary.
Okay, yeah, yes, sir. So for your presentation, you need something to share, or
I will
it's
share
fine?
something. So let me see. I'll just see if I
Yeah,
can.
you can just try. Yeah, you can try. There's a share option.
Yeah. Just a moment. I'm trying to do that because I'm not very familiar with WebEx, but I'm just trying to do that.
For me, this is the first time.
This is
It's very much similar to Google Meet and all that. So nothing to worry.
I'm just trying to see how to share.
Yeah, there's down you will find that share tab. Yeah.
Now, can you see the screen? Is it full screen or is it?
Radha?
Yes, sir. Ramesh, sir.
Radha, just now I spoke to secretary, sir.
Yeah.
VC is in town, it seems. I think he is going to meet VC, vice chairman. So he just conveyed apologies to convey to president that he will be meeting later.
Okay. Fine, sir. Not a problem. Yeah, sir, I think we'll just start maybe this program in another 2-3 minutes. Ramesh sir is actually checking with principal sir. I think VC sir he's in town, so maybe they're all, I think, in that meeting. So, but Ramesh sir is
Take your
checking.
time. Let me know whenever you want to start. Let me know.
Yeah. Just
Radha, you can start.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jayant, are you there? Jayant, Chetan, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we'll just play sir, we have like 1 or 2 minutes, some short video, and then we will start.
Yeah, sure.
Chetan, can you make it quick? Yeah. Chetan, no voice. Chetan, are you done? Hello. Okay, so I think we'll start the program. Yeah. Yeah. Once again, good evening, sir. Good evening, one and all. So we are glad to have all of you here this evening. We appreciate your presence, and School of Architecture DSATM takes pleasure to invite you all for today's expert talk by Architect Habib Khan, sir, who is President of Council of Architecture. So let me formally inaugurate today's talk by welcoming our guest. Distinguished dignitaries, delegates, colleagues, and my dear students, good evening. I, Professor Radha, on behalf of School of Architecture, am delighted to welcome you all for today's talk, Let's Architect an Expert Talk series. Gives me an immense pleasure and honor to welcome our guest speaker, who is a passionate, dynamic, enthusiastic person, Architect Habib Khan, sir, for accepting our invitation for this webinar. Architect Habib Khan, sir, is a well-known architect, excellent academician, a painter, and a poet too. I heartily welcome you, sir, on behalf of School of Architecture, DSATM, and Management. Welcome, sir. I would
Thank
like
you.
to extend, yeah. I would like to extend a special welcome to our secretary in his absence, Shri Gali Swami sir, who is supporting pillar of our the Anand Sagar institutions for more than 5 decades. It's my privilege to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. M. Ravi Shankar sir, in his absence, who is an inspiration to all of us. My heartily welcome to Vice Principal Dr. C. Nandini and Dr. Sumitra Devi, KA, Dean Academics, Professor, Department of ISE, in their absence for this program. It's also an honor for us to welcome all the HODs of various Department of Engineering and MBA to this memorable function. I extend my warm welcome to our director, Professor Gaddam D. Ramesh sir, whose continuous support and encouragement made us organize this interactive event in our department successfully. Thank you, Ramesh sir. My heartily welcome to all the heads of the prestigious institutions and students of various architecture colleges across the country. I welcome you all. I would like to welcome all my fellow colleagues on behalf of organizing team, and most importantly all the participants, my dear students. I welcome you all to this value added talk and wish you have more fruitful and interesting sessions. I would like to request everyone to kindly cooperate with us throughout the program to make it successful. So now I request Ramesh sir to share a few words before we get into the actual program. So Ramesh sir.
Good evening, all, and must thank Dr. Premchand Sagar, who is our Vice Chairman, Chand Sagar, who is our Chairman, Anand Sagar Institutions, and Secretary Sri Gali Swami sir, for being joining SI institutions. This is a great honor for us, but also that architect sir, as our chief guest, today, has taken our invitation, joined us to. Thank you, sir. Respected principal, DSATM, Shankar sir, respected Vice Principal, Dean Academics, all the heads of the. Also, it's a great privilege that joined with great institution principals, directors, institutions. Thank you for joining this. DSATM, SOA DSATM started in 2012, 60 intake, and it has grown. Started initiatives, program initiatives under this. Being the number of webinars, open national also talk about saving, climate control, change, pollution control, sustainability, and including fitness. Covered is that students have sensitized and joined great enthusiasm. Also into great it's like social activities. Our students have social activities. Great inspiration, particularly during that floods. 2015, they have distributed packets, some kind of when they're closed and all, some blankets and so we are into many dimensions. Our USP is our hands-on activities, particularly design studios, construction studios, and including history of architecture and some of activities. We rope in some of experts, sensitized from the industry, sensitized to area, and supported by this management animals supporting is that which are student centric as well as faculty centric. Faculty development sponsored by Stank is great support. This note, we our students are great in terms of getting records for the institution. We have got awarded 50,000 cash prize for the national competition in design, which has had for this Charminar students have secured second prize, and previous year we have 2 ranks, one third rank, 7, which is great. Parallel students are seeking international foreign studies. Just universities, but great universities like STU. So this is our path. We are striving. Definitely do so. Seek the support of well as council. Support us with taking our institution to next level. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesh sir. So I'll just quickly share a very brief glimpse of what sir was trying to tell about our college. Is my screen visible? Is my screen visible? All of you?
No, no, we only can see your video.
Okay, it's not happening. Check. Yeah, okay, sorry. Is it okay? Yeah, so now I would like to take this opportunity to give a very brief glance about School of Architecture campus to DSATM. As I told, our founders of these great institutions are late Shri R. Dayanand Sagar and late Srimati Chandrama Sagar. Presently, our DSI institutions are flourishing under the eminent guidance of our chairman, Dr. Hem Chandra Sagar, and vice chairman, Dr. Prem Chandra Sagar, and our secretary, Sri Gali Swami sir. Sorry. This time, slides are not changing. Yeah. So our college is established in year 2012. We impart 5 years bachelor degree course, and we have a capacity of 60 students. And our college is affiliated to VTU, that is Vishweshwara Technology University, Belgaum, Karnataka, and our department is recognized by Council of Architecture. In 2015, our college was also NATA Test Center. As told this time, from the batch of 2015 to 2020, we are proud to bag VTU third rank and VTU seventh rank. And I'm sure this is just the beginning. SOA DSATM has a lot more to witness such success in future. We encourage our students to participate in pan-India level competitions. They take part in various competitions, which gives them good exposure and experience. Our students are also very much take part. Someone's mic is on. Is it yours? Okay, really sorry for that. Our students also take active part in NASA competition, which again gives them a good exposure and experience, and it's a fun way of learning a lot of things. And it was recognized as second best college in Bangalore in one of the zonal NASA. So, other than academic competitions, our students are no less them to prove in cultural and sports fields. They have won numerous awards in such competitions. So, these are a few of the glimpses. They do celebrate a lot of events in our department, all the cultural events. Then, apart from academic, cultural, and sports fields, as Sir was telling, our students are very much involved in a lot of social activities. Basically getting socially active give them an experience of being responsible citizen, which I strongly believe very much needed for this present generation. We at SOA DSATM also conduct a lot of site visits. My slides are not changing. Yeah, so being national, international. So internationally, we have taken them to Vietnam, Cambodia, Bhutan. But since last 2 years, due to the pandemic, we are missing actually those fun, that fun. So with this brief about college here, I would like to introduce our today's chief guest. It's my honor to introduce Habeeb Khan sir. So, second. Able to minimize this screen. Sorry for this. This is, I think, first time we are using WebEx, so not really very. Architect Habib Khan, sir, graduated in architecture from VNIT, which is formerly known as VRCE, and he went to USA where he completed his master's in architectural design from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. After his master's degree, he worked in Philadelphia, coordinating major retail design projects for retail giants across the world. He returned to India in 1990 and started his own private practice. He was awarded the JII Best Interior Design Award by the Indian Institute of Architects in 1998 and IIAKAFF Young Architects Award in 2000. He was also awarded the Orange City's Achievement Award in 2009. Orange City, it's a name given to city of Nagpur, which is the winter capital of Maharashtra. So since it's like produces oranges in mass, so that's the name given. And I'm proud to tell because I'm also from same Nagpur city. Yeah, so he also won state level excellence in architecture and education award by Indian Institute of Architect Maharashtra chapter in 2011. Recently, he and Smita ma'am, that's sir's wife, were awarded the prestigious INTBAU Award 2018 for large scale promotion of traditional and vernacular architecture in the world. INTBAU is an organization promoted by HRH Prince Charles, and their JD campus project was awarded the Excellence Award in New Building Technology. Architecture to him is a passion, a total commitment, and something to enjoy and indulge in. He is fiercely committed to architecture, being contextual and relevant. He believes that architecture shall be responsive to tradition, climate, context, and be environmentally and ecologically responsible. His architecture is organic, traditional, contextual, and contemporary. His architectural practice, Meeta and Habib Khan, that is SHK Architects, mostly deals with campus design, institution, and wildlife resorts. He has worked with major hospitality groups like Taj, Citrus, Mahua and Celebration, and few major campuses in central India. Habib sir has been invited to many national and international conferences as keynote speaker. Some of you are IIA NatCon 2009 Nagpur and 2012 in Raipur, Triple ID NatCon at Goa 2008, Kolhapur 2014 and Indore 2015. Chitale Endowment Lecture Anna University Chennai and Triple ID Design Yatra in about 12 cities. He was also invited to speak at international conference of IAPS Glasgow 2012, Degrowth 2012 Venice, and Degrowth 2016 Budapest. Architect Habib Khan sir is also involved in teaching since the beginning of his career. He has been taking guest lectures and engaging design studios in architectural colleges all over the country, apart from juries and examinations. So, yeah. He is currently the director at Priyadashini Institute of Architecture and Design Studies, PIARDS, Nagpur, and Lokmanya Tilak Institute of Architecture and Design Studies, Mumbai. His design teaching revolves around sensitizing students towards their own heritage and roots, context and climate within the framework of being contemporary. Habib sir has actively been working with Government of Maharashtra on few policies framing guidelines. He has also been nominated by Government of Maharashtra on the Council of Architecture. He is currently the President of Council of Architecture. Habib sir is an avid painter and has exhibited his paintings on Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Kabir. He also dabbles in poetry and has written songs for Triple ID NatCon Indore, Design Yatra, and IIA Centenary Anthem, and the theme song for Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao campaign. With this brief introduction, now finally the time has arrived to request our chief guest, Architect Habib Khan, President Council of Architecture, New Delhi, to address the audience. Over to you, Habib sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for inviting me to talk to students and faculty in the institution. I am greatly honored and pleased to be amongst all of you. And I sincerely apologize. For the innumerable number of times that you invited me to come to your institution, including the very dedicated, committed, and passionate students who who have been following it up with me to come and attend your annual cultural program or exhibitions or whatever you were organizing as student activity. But unfortunately, due to a very hectic schedule and very hectic time that we are all going through, I could not make it. But I'm sure I'll promise that next time I'm in Bangalore, it'll be a pleasure to be amongst the faculty and fellow architects and, of course, my dear students who are the future of our country. Yeah. Today I'm going to speak, since most of the audience is comprising of students, I'll speak what I've been speaking to students across the country, wherein I want to share my thought process, the idea behind my architecture and its philosophy and its content. And some of you would have heard it before, some of you would have seen it earlier. But nevertheless, the idea behind is, when as teachers, we realize that whatever is being taught in a classroom, the students, the brightest student in the class absorbs about 60%. These are statistics which have been analyzed by experts. Absorbs about 60%, and the lowest absorption is about 35%. So even innumerable number of times that I would have spoken about this theme, and my theme, which is very close to my heart and I'm very passionate about, get absorbed only 60%. So you can give me benefit of doubt that the more number of times I will speak about it, the more students and will probably get influenced and get charged, inspired to think about what our built environment should be. I started as a young architect 30 years ago after returning back from the US, and when I started my practice, I saw the kind of professional atmosphere that existed. Coming and working from the US was some kind of a different work culture, different atmosphere, different kind of parameters and different framework that was here in India. And then I realized the kind of cities that we live in, the kind of urban infrastructure that we have, the kind of built environment that we have, the kind of aesthetic sense that we have. Something is amiss, something is missing, missing from the entire scenario. And I had the fortune of working on vernacular architecture projects, alternative technology projects, and I realized that it is time that we start working long before the term sustainability was coined, long before the green buildings, GREHA, LEED ratings and IGBC ratings were in place. We started working towards a vocabulary which was traditional, which was contextual, and which was kind of more rooted to where the building was built. And it's a very difficult thought process to implement, because with the onslaught of globalization and industrialization, internationalism that has crept into our minds, and we get swayed by the Western thought process without realizing that the fundamentals of architectural thought process is different in the Western world as compared to our eastern part. That is because the Western world and Western architecture wants to bring the sun in, because they shortage of sunlight, and they want to bring the sun inside the buildings, while we have excess of sun and we want to keep the sun outside the building. And that is a fundamental difference between the architecture of the West and the architecture of the East. But we in India specifically are poor in documentation, are poor in talking about our works, poor in propagating what we're doing, poor in not writing about it, not criticizing it, not appreciating it. While the Western world, the Americans, the Europeans, and the Britishers document their work, they talk about it. So most of the data that is available for architects and architecture students is Western oriented, and it's very easy to get swayed by what happens in the Western world. And that was the idea behind and it was very close to my heart. So we started working in a particular idiom, we started working in a particular thought process. It was not easy to convince the clients to accept what we were saying. As a young architect, it becomes more difficult because you start losing projects. you start losing money. You have you get you find yourself difficult to survive. But sticking to a thought process, sticking to an idea, sticking to an ideology, and standing committedly, rootedly to what you think is right, pays you in the long run. I hope you're able to see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I will. The talk is divided in three categories, and I realized over a period of time, is so many years that I am talking to students, giving presentation in conferences. Students get swayed by the by the sleek presentations and the built choreographed photographs of projects and so on and on, and they get impressed, and there are a lot of oohs and ahs and wows and kind of thing, and starry-eyed feelings among students. But then later we realized as an academician that there is some kind of a disconnect that happens, and there's some kind of a disillusionment that creeps in the students when they realize that the work that they're producing in the studios is not being linked to what is happening in the profession. There's a gap which needs to be bridged, and that gap is increasing by the day. So I tried to keep my presentation more towards the wishes and towards being more pragmatic and more practical to what the students do in their design studios, making SketchUp models, rendering them in various softwares, and doing a presentation. So most of the projects that I am showing, depending on the time that we'll have, most of them are when they were on the drawing board, and now most of them are constructed or in advanced level of construction. But the presentation deals with basically rendered views so that the students can understand that these same projects have been built actually. So that gap is in our minds, and we need to understand that what we conceive, what we understand is more important, and sticking to that thought process to your designs and then executing it as buildings is the next step. The talk is divided into three parts, wherein the first is the philosophy, the concept, what we call when we design a project, the thought behind the entire philosophy, and then the actual projects. But there's a very vitally important stage in between which is missed, and that is the method to convert the thought process into reality, the thought process into buildings. So that method is very critical and very crucial, and especially for the students when they become practicing architects or start working with someone. It's always good to have nice terminology and vocabulary of high sounding, romantically sounding words which feel good, appear good. But if there is no process in place, if there is no method in place to convert that philosophy into actual buildings, then the whole thing fails. So the idea is that the basic thought starts from the idea that man always shared a symbiotic relationship with nature, and this resulted in a contextual framework of the land that he belonged to. And similarly, if you see, his architecture was also always rooted to its land. And architecture was, is, and shall be essentially contextual. It is rooted not only to the ground upon which it sits, but also is an extension of us, its people, their culture, and the entire milieu of things. I'm sure most of you would have learned history, and you would have learned history, River Valley civilizations, the 5 River Valley civilizations, the Indus Valley, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, the Tigris, Euphrates, Mesopotamian, Babylonian civilization, the River Nile, Egyptian civilization, Amazon, the Mayas and the Incas, and the Yellow River, the Chinese civilization. So, if you understand, these civilizations started built mass, built environment along rivers because they were the lifelines through which life was sustained through rivers, trade was sustained through rivers, and so on and on. And what is it that made the architecture of these 5 River Valley civilizations different? The water was same, the soil was same, but the output was different. The output was basically different because of the thought process, the culture of the people who actually built those things. And today we have forgotten that aspect of the people for whom our architecture is being built for. So it is architecture is always an extension of the people that we're building for. And then every architectural creation is always a step in the onward evolution of the land to which it belongs. And with over 3,000 years of recorded history, Indian vernacular architectural traditions grew and evolved to form a strong and cohesive architecture. A chain of evolution happened right from Mohenjo-daro, Harappa until the modern architecture came into existence in India. This evolution grew richer with assimilation and inputs from various cultures coming into the subcontinent, including the British. If you see, Mughal architecture in India is totally different than what it was elsewhere in Samarkand and Bukhara. While the British, when they built in India, also built the Gateway of India, the India Gate, the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and the Lutyens' Delhi, and so on and on. Every colonial architecture was totally different, and it was merged and fused with what Indian architectural traditions were, Indian architectural planning was, and the architecture was totally different than what it was in England at that time. The vernacular process of growth and evolution continued in spite of changed and newer functional needs and expression. Welcome arches, victory arches, industrial buildings, industrial sheds were totally unknown before the Industrial Revolution, but the chain of evolution that I am talking of continued its existence. And in spite of the geographical, climatic, and cultural diversity that India is, the architecture in India, whether it was Portuguese or whether it was colonial or whether it was anything else in the country, bonded itself into a cohesive expression. And this evolution was interrupted with the advent of Industrial Revolution and the resultant globalization that happened after the Industrial Revolution, the coming in of the Art Deco, coming in of the machine into architecture. Along with the coming in of modern architecture in India. Modern architecture, the thought process behind modern architecture, which was not understood clearly by architects across the world, broke that chain that existed since ages. Indian modern architecture, specifically Indian modern architecture of today, intentionally defies its older neighbors rather than standing beside them in peace. And wherever you see industrialization and development has penetrated, these impersonal forms have intruded upon the traditional profiles of cities, towns, and villages. And the predictability and monotony of today's modern architecture is astonishing, whether it is Hinjawadi in Pune in the top picture or Shanghai in China in the bottom picture. It is virtually impossible to find out if you are blindfolded, taken into a shopping mall in Kolkata or Bangalore. You will not be able to tell in which city you are because we have lost the contextuality of architecture in our built environment today. We have to understand what kind of buildings are we making today. If you see, this is a Tukaram Sabhagriha, it's a marriage hall, marriage function hall, banquet hall, where we are getting married inside in same traditions, thousands of years old, reciting the same shlokas, same rituals, and everything same. But the facade of the building is Greco-Roman, which is neither Greek nor Roman, but heavily borrowed from the Western world. So we have to understand what kind of buildings are we making today. Love for the prestige Western leaves much space for amusement. We have a Florentine dome on the Development Authority office, which is a fake dome built in concrete with a lantern as a weight, as a counterweight on top of the dome. And this is what our Development Authority aspires to be. Prestige, which is a copy, and pasted, which is superficial, is neither here nor there. It's neither Western, it's neither Indian. What kind of buildings are we making today? Something has gone amiss with our contemporary architecture. We are designing buildings with due apologies to the architects concerned. We are protruding glass facades to bring in sun from all the directions inside the building to roast the inhabitants who are working there. And we are giving opportunity for the sun to enter from all the sides. And then we use expensive air conditioning, expensive sun cutting devices, glare cutting devices, and so on and on. So we have to understand what kind of buildings we're doing. The chain of evolution that I was talking about appears to have been broken. All vernacular architecture, if you see, all traditional architecture was ingrained in freedom, and this freedom came with a sense of responsibility. These are some of the slides of the projects that I'm trying to explain what I am trying to say. When we talk of vernacular architecture, we think of mud buildings, huts, thatch roofs, tiled roofs, and so on and on, but not necessarily. Vernacular architecture has a larger canvas to look into and get inspired from. Traditionally, creativity was always linked with common sense, and all vernacular architecture relied on logic and purpose. We have lost logic and purpose in architecture today. Indian vernacular architecture respected growth in conjunction with continuity. That was very important. The chain of evolution that I was talking of, conjunction with continuity, growth in conjunction. And vernacular architecture exhibited creative and aesthetical details, which are often solutions to a problem. And today we are creating problems and then giving solutions. It's the other way around these days in architecture today. Our architecture at Smita and Habeeb Khan Architects is a response to this and the realization of the importance and the appropriateness of the traditions of architecture that have gone by. Architects need to pick up the threads that modernity severed. The need to reinvent a new and more responsive architecture, which will be a continuum of the vernacular and be a response to climate, context, tradition, culture, and our lost construction techniques. We are reinventing the wheel time and again. And our lost construction techniques, importance of daylight, ramifications of heat, and appropriateness of built forms, resulting in a new architectural vocabulary, a language having its roots in layers of traditional wisdom, and a fresh interpretation of modern construction techniques and vernacular principles and forms, and is a link between the past and the present. And this we call contemporary vernacular, wherein we learn heavily from the principles and from the wisdom of vernacular architecture and try to incorporate in contemporary architecture. I do not want when my buildings is, let's say, excavated 2000 years down the line, it should be a building built in 2021 and not 1011 or 1016. I want my building to look contemporary while it stands on a solid ground of vernacular wisdom. And that is what is meant by contemporary vernacular. If you see this project, this is the PIH Priyadarshini Institute of Architecture and Design Studies, my school of architecture. If you see in this part of the world, in the central India, wooden posts are used for making huts and making houses in villages and rural areas. When the wooden post goes into the mud wall, it used to decay very fast and eaten by termites. So they devised a technique wherein the walls stopped earlier and the wooden post went into the ground. Same thing happens when you use steel columns. So we have used the same principle where the column stands independent, the metal column stands independent of the wall. Now, what in a nutshell is contemporary vernacular? It's like going back to roots, building sensibly, building optimally, building intelligently, and building correctly within the framework of context, climate, tradition, geology, geography, and economy. That is, to me, contemporary vernacular. Now, how do you convert this thought process that I've just discussed? I'm going a little fast because I think we'll run out of time. The method to convert this philosophy and thought process into actual design, into actual built mass, is what we call 10 commandments. I think if you recall, Prophet Moses gave his people 10 commandments. And these are the 10 commandments that we have given to ourselves. That if we follow these 10 commandments, you will be able to implement the thought process very effectively. Not necessarily in every project you will be able to use all the 10 commandments, all the 10 points that we have given to ourselves as rules. Even if you use 50% of them, you will be able to produce architecture which is contextually sensitive to the people and to the land for which it is being built. The first is respect for local people and their economy. Second is respect for local climate, culture, and context, which I talked about. Third is respect for man and nature for non-industrial building methods. Now, in these days, it's not possible to use 100% non-industrialized building methods and materials, but try to be justifiable and pragmatic in using materials which are non-industrial. If you use bricks locally, if you import bricks from different region, then you're not only increasing the carbon footprint, you're also not rejuvenating the local economy, which gets sustained by the use of local materials. If you use local skill, local labor, so that becomes non-industrialized as much as possible. And then fifth is reinventing and reintroduction of traditional construction techniques. In this building, there is no RCC slab because I feel that RCC is the culprit, is the major culprit in our architecture today. Although concrete, reinforced concrete, that too, starts decaying after a certain period of 20 to 25 years, and that's why you will find buildings which are dilapidated, which gets cracked open because the steel rust inside, it opens up, the concrete decays, while the old construction techniques strengthened as they aged, If you see lime mortar, lime plaster, lime walls, you will find that they attain their strength 40 years after they were built. And that is the reason why you will have these tombs which are made in stone, lime plaster, lime mortar are still standing, and our buildings built 50 years ago are decaying. And so, reinventing and reintroduction of traditional building construction and techniques. The sixth is, can you see the screen? There's some, I think, problem with the. The sixth is continuum of tradition, which I also talked about earlier. Imaginative use of traditional building techniques, spaces, and volumes. Eighth is recycle and reuse, which is a very important point of achieving sustainability, wherein you judiciously use materials from your building quarries, from your building scrap, from your traditional knowledge systems, and then you recycle, refurbish, and reuse. Ninth is innovation in finishes. I cannot have a building which is finished 1,000 years ago or 100 years ago. I want to innovate on the finishes. I want to innovate on the materials using the framework of contemporary vernacular. And the third is use of natural materials and an ecological approach towards them. As far as possible, we should. Nowadays, you have expensive cladding systems of stone, of artificial stone, natural stone, and so on and on. And the same thing can be done by natural materials in probably one-fourth the cost. So we need to understand this. And this is the method which we use. It may be faulty, it may be right, it may be wrong. That is subject to debate and discussion. But everyone should have a method to convert their thought processes. It's very important to have a thought process, and then to convert that process into reality, you have to have a method. And unless you have this method, you will not be able to, you will not succeed in making good buildings, in good built environments for your citizens, for your clients. Now, I'll explain through some examples. I will not explain these points and these commandments in the examples that I'm giving, because that will take a lot of time. And I'll just show you the projects. I'll just explain very briefly what the project is all about. And you can, I'm sure you're intelligent enough to correlate it with the 10 commandments and the thought process that I talked about earlier. This is a farmhouse which we're doing here in Nagpur, and it is a zero footprint, carbon footprint building. It sustains itself. It has solar roofs. It has local tiled roof. It has local stone as used. The entire water is being recycled within the complex. The entire electricity is being produced within the complex itself. And this is how it is. And I'm not explaining the project. This is the entrance. You have a lot of water bodies to mitigate the dry heat that we have in Nagpur, which reaches about 50 degrees in summers. We have large overhangs, large corridors. These are the rooms which are floating, very light material. The entire construction is in steel, and this is how it looks. Swimming pool and the living room behind it, deck on the right hand side, various angles. Everything is steel and glass, which is heavily shaded from direct sun. Load-bearing walls. There are no concrete. There's no concrete here. It's all stone, which is load-bearing. And roof which is there. There's another urban house which is built on a very tight plot. This also generates its own electricity and uses recycled water in the house. And we generate so much of electricity that we give back to the grid, so that the electricity bill is zero. And this is the facade on the north side, which brings in light, and so on and on. And I'll just go through this fast. This is a house that we're doing, a farmhouse kind of thing for a well-off farmer near Ramtek. It is designed as a traditional house with the central courtyard, and the columns that we're using are sourced from scrap dealers across the area. And this is that house. And another house that we're doing extensive use of jali, which cuts off glare and heat and gives you a feeling of openness when you open it, because there's glass behind it. This is the house that we're doing in Delhi on a large piece of plot. This is also built in steel. There's no concrete here. And this is how it looks, facing a garden with sloping roof and the solar panels behind. It is surrounded by a walkway, because the client are physical fitness freaks, so they run around, and it's about in the morning and the evening, they have their jogging on this thing that you're seeing. You have a walking trail which is covered. This is the one that I'm talking of. It also serves as a multi-purpose space for parties and for other activities that happen in the house. Now, this is another house which we're doing a lakeside community in Nagpur, where uh, the houses are designed in a community, a dense community, and this is used again a load-bearing construction with no need for RCC columns, because the stone wall itself is a is a good enough wall to take the load of a house of this scale. This is the northern facade wherein north light is brought into the house and it faces the lake as well. So the lake is on the northern side, and this is the house that looks in. This is this house in another locality close by, which also faces the lake, but this is built in a different vocabulary, wherein the rammed earth walls are used instead of steel. And this is that house, which now this is the facade which is facing the lake. Unfortunately, this is on the western side, so you'll find longer overhangs to mitigate the direct sun which comes in from the west, and also jalis to cut the glare that happens in the evening time. Now, this is another house that we're doing wherein there was a strong British colonial architectural presence, and there are a lot of buildings built in the same vocabulary. So, the development that we're doing, community residential building that we're doing, we did not want it to digress from the architectural vocabulary and create a iconic structures inside which were in contrast with the existing vocabulary. So, this is a house totally different than what we usually do, but this is again a load-bearing hall with no RCC columns and slabs and everything, but it reciprocates and gels very well with the existing very prominent buildings that exist there in the campus. This is a house in Indore that we have done recently. All these projects are almost in their completion stages, but I'm showing you rendered views because students, you will be able to relate much better to rendered views rather than full completed images. I'm just going through. Now, this is a clubhouse that we're doing in Ambazari Lakefront development in Nagpur. It's a large clubhouse on a 6-acre site. The idea behind this, if you see on the right hand side, there's a curved road, and on the left hand side is the lake. Is a large lake, and the site which is in red is the site. The idea was, as soon as you enter the club premises, you are able. The design is such that it is absolutely transparent. So from anywhere in the plot, wherever you are in the parking lot, entrance, or wherever you are in the club, you are able to see the view of the lake from there. And this is what the transparency that I'm talking of. We have jalis, we have screens, we have glass behind it, and we have absolute transparency. The planning has been done in such a manner that you have walking corridors parallel to the lake, and the buildings are perpendicular to the lake. So we are trying to maximize the eyesight and the views to the lake. That's the entrance lobby. This is the entrance foyer. You come in, get dropped, and then you park, or you get valets to park, and this is how you enter. This is how you enter. This is the porch, which is now these days you have to rely heavily on the wonders of electrical engineering, electronics engineering, wherein as you start driving, as soon as you enter the club, the landscape is very kinetic and very dynamic. As soon as you enter, as the car passes through various sensors that exist on the roads, the lighting and the mood changes in the driveway and in the porch. So if there's one car, if another car has come in, the lighting will change automatically, and you have a surreal kind of experience. And then it's not a boring drive when you're driving; it's a long, winding drive into the club. So it's not a very boring drive. The lighting and the landscape elements are not stable or static, but they're kinetic. The lighting levels keep changing, and when you get down from the car, the floor is also dynamic and kinetic, wherein as soon as you step out of the car, the entire lighting mood changes, and so on and on. So this is how the walkway is inside the club. Incidentally, this is also closer to the same colonial development that I was talking of. And one of the buildings which was demolished had these Doric columns, which we have borrowed from there and used it as structural elements in our club. This is how the club is. These are the columns that I'm talking of. There's a reception area, and this is the colonnade where you walk into the, and you from any point you will see the lake when you are sitting outside, sitting inside, in the coffee shop, in the lounge, in the billiards room, in the restaurant, cafes. All that goes. There's a central court around which the club is planned, and this is a swimming pool area. Now, this club and this entire development is on a 40 acres of land, of which the club is about 6 acres, and the entire development of 40 acres is self-sustainable in all its means. In all its means, electricity, water, recycling, sewage treatment plants, everything. These are restaurants, various restaurants, bars, and then gym, spas, Ayurvedic health, and things like that. All facilities, salons, and everything. This is the first floor of and this is the aerial view of the complex. This just started construction. This is the office that we're doing for a student organization in Delhi, which also borrows heavily from the. This is a institute wherein students from across the country are going to come and learn the culture of other states. So if someone is coming from Nagaland, he understands what Maharashtra is. Someone is coming from Maharashtra, he understands what Tamil Nadu is, what Karnataka is, and so on and on. So the building has been designed in such a manner that it borrows iconography of all the cultures across the country, converts it into graphics, and uses it into a building facade which is made up of GRC blocks. And wherever fenestration is needed, there is jali, because it's a lot of dust and a lot of pollution in the region where this is being built. Now, there's another political party's headquarters in Rajkot. It has a huge overhang because of the heat that exists there in semi-desert zones. And just see, there's a museum that we're doing for 2 saints in Nanded. And this community has a particular Nagada, a drum kind of thing, as their symbolic representation, which is the most visible representation of that community. So what we have done is derive the building form from that drum, the beating of the drums and things like that. And this is how it is made, and this is how it looks, corridors. And now there's a museum that we have planned. It's not yet started yet, but this is in its planning stages at the moment. A museum in Sevagram where Gandhiji lived, very important phase of his life. And the site is right across the Bapu Kuti, as it is called, Mahatma Gandhi's living place. And we wanted the building to be very humble and not standing as an icon in front of what the great man did for the country and his ideals and his philosophy. So we have taken, fortunately, there was a 3-meter slope on the site, and we've taken the entire building underground. So you see various courtyards, you see various covered, semi-covered courtyards, and the pyramids that you see are the museum halls and the display halls. Like this, I mean, if you walk on the upper level and you see only a parapet wall, and the building goes below it, like this. The building goes below this, and you have various ramps to take you down into the display areas. And this is built in total brick, exposed brickwork. It's all brickwork, and somewhere it's plastered to give some relief. But this is how you walk in through a ramp or through a staircase into the display areas below it. And the statue of Gandhiji sits there. These are the museum display halls, various interactive displays. It's a dynamic museum. This is how it is. These are at the lower level, and you arrive at the terrace of the building, and this is the lower level of the building, wherein you interact through various courtyards. No, this is a freedom fighter memorial that we're doing in Chhattisgarh, where tribals participated in the freedom movement, and they were unrecognized and unacknowledged. So they're making a museum and a smarak for it. So this is how it is. This also goes underground because we're making it in a tribal forest area, the hub of tribal area, which is densely forested. So we didn't want it to spoil the natural scenery there. So we have gone underground with only a little parabolic dome covering it. And the building entirely goes inside the earth. This is how it is. I mean, this is a model where you can see the only the white dome in the center that is visible, and everything else is below the ground. This is the entrance. This is a smarak, and this is how you enter into the complex. You only see a dome, and everything else is green grass and existing trees. Now, pottery in Maharashtra near Chandrapur, Bhadravati is a very important activity that was happening. It's a brick kiln wherein tiles were made, Mangalore tiles, the terracotta tiles were being made. A lot of pottery, glazed pottery was also happening, but the industry had died down. So the Khadi Gramodyog, Khadi Industries Village Commissions have commissioned this project to revive the terracotta pottery and the glazed pottery industry, where there were two strong brick kilns. The chimneys of the brick kilns existed there, and we have tried to incorporate that into our campus design. It consists of laboratories, it consists of baking fields, it consists of drying fields, a conference venue, and residential quarters for national and international students. This is how it is. This is made absolutely in adobe construction with rammed earth walls, with parabolic arches, because you don't really need lintels, the horizontal lintel which either goes in steel or concrete. So the parabolic arch is the best example of self-sustaining wall in rammed earth construction. This is how it goes. There's the chimney in between, which takes an important part, becomes a visual element in the courtyard, in the central courtyard around which the buildings are grouped. These are the staff quarters, connecting corridors, students' hostels, various staff quarters of various levels, international students stay here. This is the conference venue, and so on and on. Now we're doing, just let me know, Radha, if you have time, I'll continue, or I can conclude if you would want.
Yes, sir, definitely we can continue, not a problem.
All right. So we are working on these wayside amenities, the stops that you have, the highway stops that you have for the National Highway Authority. And where there's shortage of land, we have tried to optimize by giving the food court and the dining restaurants across the highway, so that you save space and you are not needed to acquire more inexpensive land around the highways for this. The first pilot project is coming about 20 kilometers from Nagpur, where this tube that you see, this is a structural tube and with solar panels around, so that you can, now this project generates again electricity, even while the cars, when they pass on the road, they generate electricity through dynamic kinetic panels that exist in the road. And we're able to supply to a couple of villages the solar electricity that we are generating from this project. So you have lifts taking you up and staircase taking you up as soon as you enter, and then you walk across, and the view that you get from the 6-meter height on the highway is absolutely dynamic, because the cars and the traffic keeps moving below you. And this is how it is. This is another example of wayside amenities in Jaipur on the highway which passes from, I think, Bharatmala project, which is heavily inspired from the Jantar Mantar and the architecture of Jaipur. And this is how it is. When you come park, you don't see anything. You see a brightly lit and a jali screen, which is a very strong characteristics of Rajasthan architecture. And then you have a floating roof on top. And this is a water channel. This is a recycling rainwater harvesting pond, which recycles water. This is also a net zero Graha compliant project, wherein you have no outsides intervention as far as electricity, water, everything is concerned. The entire water is recycled through STP. There's an RO plant, there's a solar plant, there are windmills and everything in the project. And this is how it is. This is how it looks from the entrance. These are some details that you see. This overall is a LHS and RHS, the left-hand side and the right-hand side development. When you're coming from, let's say, Amritsar, then you wait on the right-hand side. If you're coming from Jamnagar, you wait on the left-hand side. And the development goes around with windmills and everything. And it consists of a food court, it consists of a trauma center, local handicraft shops, and it consists of a dhaba, it consists of fuel stations, and so on, and a motel. This is somewhere near Jodhpur. When you come from Jodhpur to Gujarat, down south, the vocabulary changes, and this is inspired by the forts of Jodhpur. This is how it is behind the food court. The jali is inside. Same recycling pond gets converted into a square pond, just like the step wells, and so on and on. Now, this is a temple project that we're doing, one of the Jyotirlings in Parali. The project has not started. It got shelved at the moment because of some political issues. It's a redevelopment of the Jyotirling temple with various local stone, the black basalt stone, the Harihar Kund, where Hanuman used to come and, as per their fable, he used to take a bath and go to the temple, Ram and Sita temple. This has become a trash kin kind of thing, bin, where trash is being, the entire area is being thrown into that pond. So we propose rejuvenating that pond back to its glory, and whatever. I mean, this is the entire complex, but I will not. It's a huge project, so it's very difficult to explain in a short time. We're doing a convention and exhibition center for agricultural university, which also conducts the largest exhibition on agro products and agro produce and technology in this part of the country, central India. And they were short of land. So what we've done is they needed horticulture fields, they needed agricultural fields for experiments that they propose to do in the laboratories that are built. So this borrows heavily. The entire roof of the project is experimental field of horticulture. There's a parking. That's how you see this, and the slight curves that you see are because of the structural stability and making the structure a little lighter because a parabolic curve is a self-supporting structure. So you need lesser columns, you need lesser material to support the roof. And it is punctured by various courtyards where you see these trees coming in, where people can sit during exhibitions, interact, eat, and so on and on. And this is how it looks from the entrance. And you can see the open space in between, punctured in between, where you can sit, interact, talk, and so on. And this is the laboratories blocks and experimental administrative blocks and so on and on. Now I'm showing you a few projects which are completing in the same vocabulary. Some office building lobby of a multi-storied building, office building. I'll just can you see me now?
Yes, sir.
Am I reconnected?
Yeah.
There was some problem
Yes,
with
sir.
the net connection. So I'll just share the presentation again. I'll try to wind it up as fast as I can. Let me just share this again. Yeah, I'm so sorry about the break. There was some net connectivity issue.
No issues, sir.
I'm just coming to the slide. Just coming to the slide, reviewer. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir, we can see, sir.
Right. So these are I'm just showing you some couple of projects. I'll wind up in 10 minutes, and then you can ask questions or interact or whatever. These are some houses that we've built earlier in Nagpur. Some interiors of the houses that we've done earlier. These are houses that we're doing for politician, built-in EPC panels, engineering produced panels, and steel. Some pubs, lounges that we've done, and this is a project, temple development. We do a lot of temple development, integrated tourism development for temples in Maharashtra. And this is one such temple. Dining halls and living spaces, shopping areas, dormitories, some office interiors. This is a very interesting project that we're doing for Banjara community in a area close to Washim. It is about 250 kilometers from Nagpur, and it's the largest inverted dome that we are making. And the dome is made in steel, and there's a museum inside of this dome of Banjara culture and Banjara history. And this is a walkway, ceremonial walkway that leads to the museum. The museum is cladded with solar panels all across on all sides of its facade, and this generates electricity for the entire surrounding areas. This is the building which is at this construction stages at the moment, and it's a very dynamic museum wherein it's not static display in the museum. It's a dynamic display where it's a story of the entire Banjara community. When a boy is born in Banjara community and he dies, and what all he goes through, he becomes a teenager, he becomes an adult, gets married, celebrates functions, and then so on until he dies. So the story unfolds from the top of the museum, fifth floor. You go up to the fifth floor and come down through ramps. As you come down, you explore the life of a Banjara through various methods, which is static display, which is set displays, which is interactive display, kinetic displays, there are LED screens. It's a very, very interactive. The kind of museums these days have undergone drastic transformation, wherein the museums are no longer what they were earlier, where a statue is displayed, some ornaments are displayed, something is written about it, that's it. So that is not the concept of museum design these days. It has become very interactive. It has become audio, video, and everything interacts as you. If there's a statue of a particular saint or a person standing there, and you're walking across it starts talking to you, starts giving a speech, and so on and on. And then you can touch, you can hear, you can see what you want to see. The screens move, sets change, and things like it's become very dynamic. It has become almost a story kind of thing. Anyway, so museum design is a design by itself and a segment by itself. And this is the JD College of Campus, which got the INT-BAU award. It's a large campus, minus concrete. It's all stone, brick, and so on and on. Oh, this is Piet's corridor. It came in between. I don't know how come. This is how it is. The whole campus has been designed as if an old town has developed organically by itself without any intro. This is the western facade, a lot of baffled walls, overhangs, and things like that. So if you see an old town which is organically grown by itself, like I was talking of, there's a freedom of expression within a certain framework. So the campus has been designed, this academic block, and the entire campus has been designed in such a manner that it feels that it is organically grown. One plot of one piece of house is yours, the besides is someone else's, and so on and on. So this is how it is developed, and this is like grouped to take north light inside. Left side is the north. So buildings there are lesser in height, and the buildings keep increasing in height. So critically important areas where light is needed, natural light is needed, are kept on the top so that north light is coming uninterrupted in the buildings inside. The lower floor is heavy, as you know, Renaissance, if you know the principle of Renaissance architecture, building is heavy and then it goes lighter as you rises up, which is the most important common sense that the vernacular builders gave us. Built by stone on the ground floor, brick on the first floor, and no bricks except fenestration of light windows made in recycled wooden windows is the top floor. So, but natural that you put less load on the foundation, you make the foundation more optimal and more lighter. And these are various corridors. The entire building is designed on a non-conventional engineering college campus, wherein you have double-loaded corridors. So we have single-loaded corridors, and even if we have double-loaded corridors, which means that there are rooms on both sides of the corridor, and the corridor passes in between. We have punctured the entire campus with small, little, large, open courtyards which bring in light and insulates the building. These are various corridors that you see in the building, and there's no RCC slab like you see. It's the old wisdom of giving rafters, putting stone on top of it, and doing the flooring. 3,000 students sit in this block without any problem since last 10 years, and and very effectively. The temperature difference between outside and inside is about 7 to 8 degrees, which means a lot when the temperature outside is 40 degrees and you are sitting in 32, 33 degrees inside. So this is how the other facade is, mitigating heat and direct sun glare, and heavily landscaped with a lot of trees around and a lot of green areas and so on and on. Various interesting patterns and jalis and what we've done is labs are a very important part of engineering building institution. So we wanted the labs to be interactive with the people who are outside. So if you are in a third semester and you are seeing a sixth semester student doing an experiment inside, you're curious and you get, you look forward to doing that experiment when you are in sixth semester. So the labs are interactive. There are visual connectivity between the people who are outside the lab and inside the lab. In various corridors, systems, structural systems. If you see on the right hand side, it's a G+2 building, ground plus 2, and you will see the wisdom of the traditional builders, wherein a granite column of 8 inches at the bottom and 6 inches on the top supports the entire corridor and the building on top. While in concrete, you cannot give a column which is 9 inches by 12 inches. So recycled windows, refurbished windows sourced from scrap dealers across the country, and so on and on. And this is a house that we're doing for the richest man in the country, forest house, built in the local vocabulary of the tribals that surround the forest, and heavily tribals were involved in the building of this project, in the crafts and the arts that have gone into the building, including the plaster, the cement plaster, the wooden doors, the decorative art. There's a story behind everything that has been done there. That story which is having its root in their tribal folklore and mythology. So these are semi-covered corridors, staircases going up, bamboo roofs and flooring patterns and cement tiles, the old cement tiles. There are no synthetic tiles that are used here. All the furniture that you see is refurbished and reused. Oh, that's a house that is my own house. I'll not talk about it. This is the Priyadarshini Institute of Architecture and Design Studies, which Radha was working with us earlier. And these are some interiors that we did in London and England, some houses that were built in England. This is a house built for Shri Shri Ravi Shankar in Nagpur, and the brief was only white, and that's it. So the house is only white. This is something that Pierre just crept in between. And you'll see central courtyard, various courtyards where you can have interactive spaces. People can get paint the walls, students can paint the walls, and so on and on. So I'll not take much time as we're running out of time. This is a very 7-star Taj resort in Bandhavgarh, which was built on the premise that foreigners will visit and will get to know what our Indian village life is all about. So this is built in the mud walls, adobe walls, and the tiles that you see are also country handmade tiles. And there are long, very interesting stories behind this project. Courtyard where you can sit outside, slightly tapered walls, and local iconography of what the jambs of windows and doors were. And the contractor who was from Delhi was working on this project, who was building in 90 degrees plumb as well. And we didn't want that to happen, so we had to terminate the services of the contractor and employ the local ladies who build their houses, and to get that more authentic touch. Now, as you drive down to the resort, you will find that the houses are having all Mangalore terracotta tile, the industrial method of producing tiles, which was looking very alien in our project. And these handmade tiles, which you see on the roof, are aged tiles, which we borrowed from the houses surrounding and gave them new roofs while we used their roofs. And then you, as a urban dweller or a foreigner, goes into the resort to de-stress yourself, and the paradox of life is exhibited here, wherein you spend your time in stress, running around, meeting deadlines, earning money, and then you come to places like these to de-stress yourself, where you pay something like 60,000 rupees a night to stay here and de-stress yourself. So that is the paradox. Another Taj resort This is a space frame that we have innovatively used to support a tiled roof, a 4,000 square feet of hall, which is the reception, which has no walls, only a roof, and it protects the lobby, the entrance lobby. And you see it is having only 8 columns on the periphery, and the central is a columnless space. And that's what the concept of a space frame is all about. The reception of the resort, the bamboo covered passages, the interplay of light and everything that happens in the swimming pool. Another resort, recycled windows, recycled furniture, recycled roof. Now, this is an interesting house made for a modern day Swamiji who walks ceremonial walkway while his disciples shower petals and so on and on. Built in stone, the entire house is built in stone and so on and on. Now, when we talk of architecture, what is more important to me is that the context, the relationship between nature, culture, and relationship is very important. The context that we are building in, and that context is what gives your building the character. Context is what gives you a sense of place and a character, a distinct character, because that character varies from building to building, project to project, region to region. And once that happens, the people who are using it gets do not get intimidated by the massing, by the style of architecture that you do, but they feel at ease when they use the building, because the building is a part of them, is an extension of them. What is important is to use light and shadow, interplay of natural light in your projects, how it can come in from various sources, what is the romance that you create. And I find very saddening to see that romance in our architecture has left. We are no longer romantic as far as we when we design our buildings. Students are no longer romantic. I mean, you may be romantic with your girlfriends and boyfriends, but in your relationships. But I'm talking of when it comes to design, that romance of scale, the romance of light, and the romance of designing a space is lost, and that needs to be brought in. So much so that the person who is walking in your building, is using your building, should fall in love with the spaces that you have designed, in the avenues that you have designed for him, and so on and on. The visitor, the user, has to be indulgent. You have to create that indulgence through various vistas, through various avenues, and create that indulgence in these spaces that you design. Play of light as an art form. I mean, you can use light as an artist in your project. Excitement, exhilaration, unexpected forms and unexpected places. The urinal partitions that you see made in granite gives you a sense of exhilaration when you go to the Louvre. Every space has a temperature, has a warmth, and that temperature of a space needs to be understood. How and what temperature will create the desired effect that you would want uh, from that space, the contrast, the liveliness, and the romance, the ethereal experience that one creates when the when you see the romance of the wall and the sunlight. And the sunlight. If you remember, Louis Kahn had once said, "The sun never knew its importance until it hit the side of a wall," and that is a point which needs to be exploited by you all, young designers. Sun is such a wonderful element for you to to exploit. Interaction with the sun and its mood is important. The morning sun is different, the afternoon and the evening sun is different. You need to create a stage in your buildings wherein the sun can play a role of a master artist and play in all its mood. The tactile and the texture of materials, the warmth of material, the relationship of materials needs to be learned and understood. The appreciation of varied scales. These days, we have lost the sense of scale in our buildings because we do everything in softwares and everything on CAD and so on and on. So we've lost the sense of scale. If you ask me to draw a room of say 3 meters by 3 meters in 1:50 scale, I will be able to draw it freehand without any scale. And that sense of scale is lost. So we need to bring back that scale in our designs. Innovation of local technology, character of materials is to be understood, the temperature of materials is to be understood, and relationship of various materials is to be understood to create a visual delight. See, we make friends when we come to school, college. We make new friends, we make old friends, we make friends. And then you will find that not everybody is your friend. You gel with certain people, you don't gel with certain people, you like certain people, some you don't like certain people. Similarly, materials also have a relationship amongst themselves, and that relationship is to be understood. Solid and void relationships, play of volume, sense of mystery in your projects, and user interaction in your projects. Where the interface has to be created in such way that user becomes a part of your design, part of your spaces, and ultimately, in the end, your buildings, your spaces, your built environment has to leave an emotional response in the user. The users are of two types: one who is using the building, who is a physical user of your projects, and the other is a visual user who is seeing your building from outside but is not using it. And your architecture should create those indelible memories which evoke an emotional response. And in a nutshell, my architecture is based on the fundamental philosophy that in the eternal journey of my soul, I am a visitor on this earth, and I have inherited, apart from many things, architecture. And that when I leave this earth, nothing of me will remain. My body will merge with nature, and my architecture, whenever it dies, shall also do so. That to me is real sustainability, absolute truth, and the foundation of true architecture, which means that you should use materials in your buildings which will be consumed by Mother Earth, and this will happen only if you transform your mind. It can happen only if you are able to change your mindsets, and that to me is the ultimate true architecture. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity and listening to me so patiently for an hour. And it was a pleasure always to talk to you and share your thoughts. Thank you so much. I am open for questions and interactions if you would want to have. I mean, any any questions or
Yes,
discussions that you would want to have.
definitely. So thank you so much, sir. I mean, it was like indeed a detail, like a kind of a journey through a lot of emotional journey. In fact, I mean the end it was like superb, and you have touched a lot of emotions, like how to bring life into architecture, the romance in architecture, and then how light can play like sun can be an master of all artists, and how to play with the sun light and shadows and relationship between material and ultimately the user interaction. So through Priyadarshini College, so where actually I was like literally it was like a virtual tour for me, and I was like held back with all the memories which I was there for 2 years with you. So it was really a good, I mean, like definitely I expect and I like hope students have motivated with this talk. And yeah, let's take some questions, students. Are there any questions?
Good evening, sir. This is
Anyone?
Jayant. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you.
yeah.
I can hear you.
Yes, sir. As you have mentioned, like in most of the projects, you use the materials which are like related to vernacular, and some of the materials which are refurbished. So, sir, what are your thoughts in future? Like whether we will be using the vernacular materials, we will be going to the back like golden days, or we will be like using new technologies to produce that vernacular materials. So, which one you will prefer? The old methods or the new methods of?
No, this is not a question of old methods or new methods. It's a question of industrial methods and non-industrial methods. Industrial methods cannot be avoided these days. When something can be produced cheaply and more economically by a machine or by industry, why not? That is not the issue. The issue here is use natural materials as much as possible and exploit the characteristics and the potential of those materials. So I do not know if stone will be produced artificially, as by any method or whatever. The years and years that the stone is produced by Mother Nature, Earth, is a process which no industry can replicate. So if you're using stone in our buildings, we have to use stone so judiciously and exploit the possibility and the characteristics of that stone. Is what you learn from the vernacular. And vernacular does not mean like I tell you, try what vernacular means. Vernacular means something which is very contextual, which existed there in that land where you're building for years, for generations. And that wisdom, that essence is to be learned. is not necessarily use all vernacular materials. Vernacular materials. Vernacular is a term which is very intangible. And vernacular can be language, can be food, can be your clothing, can be your culture, can be your traditions, can be your rituals, and so, and architecture. So there are no vernacular materials. Materials are very contextual. So what we are saying is use contextual materials, use materials which are suited to the land where you're building. That's it. So there are no vernacular materials. The moment they're produced by industrial method, they don't no longer remains vernacular. Stone is not a vernacular material. Vernacular is something which is intangible. When you bring it into tangible aspects, the essence of vernacular is lost.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question? Students?
Hello,
Teachers?
sir.
Good evening, sir.
Am I
great.
audible?
Yes.
Sir, this is Pooja here. I'm an assistant professor at SOA DSATM. I just had one question. Like with the present current trends in architecture, we see architecture being more shifting from service-based industry to a product-based industry. So, as we teaching students, how do we make them ready for this? Is this change going to sustain, and how do we see students orienting themselves to this big shift? And is the shift going to happen with AI taking over a major part of architecture, which is already evident in Western countries?
See, ultimately, AI is also written by the human mind. The range of the software and the range of the AI is limited to the range of the human mind. If we are able to control and if we are able to exploit the possibility of the AI to our benefit, then it is good. Otherwise, it is devastating. Uh, human mind has infinite possibilities and limitless range, and that is why it's a human mind. While the AI or artificially computed softwares will be restricted to what the human mind has fed. So this is something that we need to understand. And as far as profession changing from service industry to a product-based industry, I would say a business-based model rather than a service-based model. Uh, there has to be gone are those days of those holier than thou attitude which the architects had, and this is what we have failed to recognize in the last 50 years, and the profession has changed drastically. But we are being taught and brought up in a system which is heavily holier than thou, and architect being the god of things, creator of things. Gone are those days. Gone are those days of those iconic architects being produced by any country or any region. It's a more collaborative effort these days. It is a more a practice which is based on collaboration, and of course, it is business. I am here in this practice to make money. Otherwise, why am I here? I am giving service. I am doing social cause by making good buildings, by rejuvenating the economy, X, Y, Z. But I am here to make money is what needs to be told to students. But that making of money has to be in ethical parameters, has to be within the framework of conscientious commitment to your profession and to your country and to your people. But it cannot be a trading business. It cannot be a wholesale business. It cannot be a business wherein you're producing something and selling something. But it is a business, and business is an integral part of a profession and service industry. So without it, you cannot survive. Without it's only ideal talk, lip service, and disillusionment that you will give to your students. So you have to tell them that apart from being a service industry, apart from being a noble profession, apart from being something equivalent to God, but you are not God. You are God which has control in your electrical engineer, in your plumbing consultants, MEP consultants, HVAC. So many consultants are involved in the project these days. Small or big is not the issue, but there's so many collaborative efforts that go into a project these days. And of course, I'm here to make money. Otherwise, why am I running an institute? Why am I running an office if I don't want to make money? Making money is not sin. And we need to tell our students that money is what matters, but as long as you earn it through ethical means within a framework of conscientious practice and whatever values that you're brought up with.
Thank you for emphasizing on collaborative measures and business ethics, sir. Thank you.
Priya, Priya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask, when we are talking about certain older traditional or methodologies of building, so an example of red oxide flooring, a lot of people don't tend to use that these days because they say, it's not being done properly, or it's not being done well to the point where it lasts the way it used to be done before. So I noticed that there are certain techniques which are being used by you as well, sir. So how do you go about with sourcing people to do it in such a way where it is as strong and efficient? Yeah, so that was one question. And if you can't source them, how do you go about with training or finding personnel who can train them to attain a certain result?
Right. See, it's a vicious circle that we all are in. Red Ox is a classical example of the vicious circle that I'm talking of. It is not being done properly because people are not trained to do that properly. And people are not trained to do properly because you have stopped using them. So they have gone into different other professions. I'll give you an example. In this project of GD College that I showed, where the stone masonry was done, random rubble stone masonry was done in sandstone. We had no workmen to do that masonry in sandstone or to make it into ash masonry. And then we searched around, we found that this kind of work was being done in a place which is about 200 kilometers away called Malkapur, where stone masons used to come from. So we went there, looked for them. We sent people to look for them. We found out who those people were, who those families were. And we realized that most of them are these days either vegetable vendors or masons doing brickwork or civil construction, or most of them have converted their business into pantelas and some kind of trading, because no one was using it. Was a matter of survival. There was no livelihood then for them. So we convinced them to come back and do this work, and that we will give them perpetual work for 5 years, and so on and on. And five of them agreed to come, and they did the masonry. And there's a presentation. Unfortunately, that's not what I showed today. It's in that campus presentation, wherein you see the kind of work that they did. First masonry they did, and subsequently how their skills came back and how they improved. There were 3 stages of improvement that they, and it is evidently seen as a timeline of their skills improving when they started coming in. Now subsequently about 25 or 30 of them are working on the project. Now it has stopped, it is finished. So about 30 of them were working, and they had that pride. I mean, see, this is an art. It's almost akin to being an artist. When you have skill in your hands to do something which others can't do, and you produce it with so much of involvement, that gives you a sense of pride, sense of achievement, and it gives you dignity of labor, which is very important. Apart from rejuvenating a local economy is a different issue, but it gives you a pride, a sense of, now imagine an artist selling pav bhaji, or selling vegetable, becoming a vegetable vendor. And when you restore that art in him, when you restore that skill in him, he has a sense of pride, sense of achievement, and that dignity that he always wanted to have. So you have to take some efforts. We did this red oxide flooring that people, craftsmen, those masons, those people came from Kerala to do in an auditorium that we had done, a large auditorium that we had done. And the kind of work that they produced was superb, excellent work. And it has still not cracked, it has still not broken, the way it was done. And we call them every 3 years or 4 years to come and do that polish, coconut polish, oil polish, and redo the polish the floor and things like that. So it is your dedication and commitment which needs to be done, and needs to sustain to do this. It needs a lot of patience and commitment and courage to do that, and a ready client to accept what idiosyncrasies you are trying to heap on him. So that's also an important thing. And also how to train them is a thing which something unless you know yourself, you can't train you. So if you are thorough in your work, if you're thorough in your knowledge, we did a house for a very famous chef here, and he wanted to do it in lime. So we did. There was no lime mixers these days available. So we convert concrete mixer into a lime mixer, And that took some time, some experiment, but we succeeded. So we built the entire house in lime and lime plaster, and you see how cool it is and how strong it is. You just, it is now almost 12 years now, and you just knock the walls and it rings like a metal, because that's how lime is. The quality of lime is that as it absorbs moisture from the air, it keeps strengthening with the process that happens. I'm not a chemical engineer, but this much of knowledge I think all of us have, that lime reacts with water molecules and hardens as time passes. So lime structure attains a stability in 40 years. So 15 years down the line, you could see how strong that plaster is. It doesn't even chip off. If you scratch it, the edge of the plaster, if you of a door frame of a jam, if you it doesn't peel off. It doesn't come out like a cement plaster does. So it needs some kind of dedication and some kind of commitment, commensurate with some kind of money that comes in with your dedication.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Sir, it's not a question, but I think you have taken us journey through projects, and definitely you have dealt with projects right from farmhouses to a 7-star hotel, which, without losing the context and without losing the kind of that rigor to stick to contemporary vernacular, which I could see in all your projects. You have not left that 5 elements of nature. They're all through your projects, whether it is small or big, that are very lively seen in projects, and all the projects which dealt with are most sitting properly in the nature that is there, which is around. That is sometimes very difficult to attain. Looking at the modern materials and the choice of materials that are there, and the clients, kind of desires and kind of his kind of actions and all. So it is very difficult. But then all your projects were so inspiring. I think the students must have grasped the kind of the attachment you have towards vernacular, kind of emotions that you could create in those spaces and all. Very interesting, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The one statement that you said, that the vernacular is can be defined as logic and purpose. So as long as people, architects, take this as a lead, there should be some logic, some purpose. Definitely it will be a vernacular. Agree with you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Even the thought that you have given all our students relating to issues on temporary choosing of materials. As you said, the materials also interact with people. They also show the temperature, the kind of emotions you get to know when different spaces, different materials. That is also very much agree with you, sir. Yes, sir, that you have spent so much time with us. Heard so many.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Back to you
So
for a more detailed conversation, so that I can give something for students here. Sir, one question I want to ask, like this was there, like all your projects are intuition based or derived, sir?
They're institution based.
No, intuition.
Intuition.
Is it like the form kind of thing which you have devised, like for that ashram, one for the tribal
Yeah.
yeah.
See, actually, there is no defined process of design.
So most it is a kind of question which actually bothers me. Is it derived through intuition? Go to the site and immediately take this form, this kind of a logic.
I think it's a combination. It's a combination and mixture of many things. You go to the site, you see how the site. See, I personally feel that I am a believer of vibes. You know, when I meet you, there's a certain vibe that I have with you, certain vibes that I have, different vibe with someone else. Similarly, the site also gives you some vibes. You feel like, I mean, this is the context and this is how you build and this is how what it should be. A broad conception in mind. But then if you go to a doctor, if you go to a doctor and if you go to a heart doctor, if he's operating on your heart or if he's operating on some part, he knows each and every vein there, how thick that must be. He feels the pulse and he sees how fast your pulse is or whether it is running properly or not. So you need to feel the project, in terms of the materials that you will use, in terms of the technology that you will use, and how every material will give a form, every material will generate a form, every material will generate a character. It has different possibilities of generating characters and the kind of spaces that you would want, if it's an institution, if it's a house, if it's a, what is the lifestyle of the family who's going to live in, whether they would want this kind of space or whether they wouldn't want this kind of space. So you have to just feel the pulse of your client, of your user, of the site, of the materials that you think you will use, and then it's a mixture of everything. So I don't go by a very defined design process. I have to do circulation first, or I'll have to do this first, and then this, and the form will be generated. Form follows function, or function follows form. Is all bullshit. Nothing works that way. I'm sorry, but I mean that nothing works that way, and for me at least. And then it is feeling the pulse of the site. It's feeling the pulse of the people you're building for. It is feeling your own pulse, what you want there, and it is also feeling pulse of the materials that you use. If I'm using brick, how am I going to use it? If I'm using steel, how am I going to use? What are the possibilities that the steel can give me? And that generates forms. And then your idea of dissecting a building. Before it is built, you need to do a postmortem of the design that you have done. You have to walk inside your buildings that you have designed, your plans that you have made, the spaces that you want to create, and all those things like I was talking of, warm, temperature, light, everything comes in when you start walking into the building. If I will design a building and I'm doing a design of a building, I will walk in that building, each and every nook and corner I will walk, and I will see how I'm going to fall in love with this particular wall, how am I going to fall in love with this door, with this entrance, and how I will make my user fall in love with this. And that is what governs the detailing and the detailed design of it. The moment we start thinking while designing that I am designing a door, we are gone. I am designing a bedroom, we are gone. We will be producing stereotypes of room. I am designing a space for an activity called sleeping. I am designing a window thinking that this is an interface between the internal and the external. Not just a window which is bringing in light or which is bringing in, keeping me protected from weather outside or inside. I am not designing a window to keep my air conditioning inside, not go out. I am designing a particular element which is an interface between the external and the internal. So if we start taking each and every activity like this, then then our design quality improves and that romance starts coming in. The entrance door is not a door which is keeping me secure and which is locking my house and giving me security. It's not that. Entrance door is something which is welcoming me when I'm entering the house, welcoming a guest who's coming into the house. If I start abstracting the activity, abstracting the purpose, and considering the activity, now it's a standard notion that I'm going to design a dining room. I'm not going to design a dining room. I am going to design the activity of dining. And that is an integral part of my process, wherein how you can dine. Do you want to sit on a dining table and dine? Do you want to sit on the floor and dine? What are the various options of dining that I can have in my room? Why should I have only one dining room? Why cannot have dining spaces across the house, and so on and on? When I design resorts, I give them so many, person comes and stays for 3 days. So you have various dining experiences. You breakfast, you have a different place. You have lunch in a different place. You have dining in a day, dinner in a different place, and so on and on. So let us consider activities. Let us abstract those activities and convert them into experiences that we will not forget, rather than designing confined silos or confined, watertight compartments of a living room or a drawing room or a toilet or anything like that. So that is also. I don't know if I've answered your question well, because it's a very complex and a difficult question to answer, but.
Rightly said, sir. I got it. Yes, definitely, sir.
So I think, shall we wind up now?
Yeah, I think it's almost 2 hours. We're having an interaction with you. So, but we really actually didn't
I have
realize
another meeting at 8, so
it was.
I'll.
Yes. We completely
Yes.
understand. So,
So many thanks. We are really honored that
My
exactly.
pleasure.
Yes, sir.
keep
So
bothering
that's
you.
what we take this
No, no, no.
opportunity. Yeah, to
Yes, thank you.
thank
Even
you
if one,
once
even
again.
if one
Yes.
student learns and does what I think I am doing is right, and even if one student out of the audience incorporates that, the purpose is served.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Definitely,
It was very
I
inspiring,
do
sir.
believe
Very
that.
inspiring talk. Definitely, even our
Yeah,
teachers
there's a
might have
lot of
got.
things that, sir, you have left with our students. There's a lot of provoking, the thought process, the 10 commandments that we were talking about. I hope students will take it forward, and then definitely now, since they are in this design stage right now, so this is a right time this presentation has happened actually, so they can take all your ideas and your advices and the way you have implemented things. So
I just want
definitely,
to tell one last thing to
we'll
the
look into
students,
it.
which I forgot in the presentation. If you give me a minute.
Yes, please, sir,
That
please, sir.
you all are the future of our country. You are all, or you are the people who will build our country to be a world leader shortly. And you are responsible for the well-being of our citizens. You design spaces. We live in those spaces designed by you. We work in spaces designed by you. Every hour, every minute is spent in work done by architects, even if it's a public space, a private space, or a civic space, or anywhere. Everything is designed by architects. So you are the future of the country. I want you to be a little more sensitive, a little more caring, a little more sensitive in dealing with people that you're designing for. And you are the future of our country, and you need to be responsible, and you need to be committed in making spaces which will improve the mental well-being of our future citizens. So this is what I forgot to tell you at the end. So thank you for giving me that.
Definitely, sir. Yes. So I think with this, we have come to an end to this like beautiful presentation by Architect Habib Khan, sir. So I take this opportunity to thank you once again for accepting our invitation and sharing your wonderful projects and your process. Thank you once again. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you so much.
And I also would like to convey our sincere thanks to our management, with teachers, supporting staff, and my dear students and student volunteers. And of course, I register my profuse thanks to Architect Gadam De Ramesh sir for all the guidance and the support. Sir, you're always there to support us and doing these kind of programs. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Yeah, good night, sir. Yes, sir, I think. Yeah, it was good. So, thank you, students. Thank you for joining and being patiently here. Being here till almost it's 2.5 years now. Hours, sorry, not years. Yes, sir. It was good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you,
thank
sir.
you so
Thank you,
much,
Ramesh, sir.
brother.
You have explained it.
It
Yeah.
was